encourage people to get the measles vaccine.
And that's news as far as I'm concerned, that you're saying that. What's the position philosophically of the federal government in terms of public health?
The federal government's position, my position is people should get the measles vaccine.
Not particularly pleased. You know, I've been a thorn in the side of Big Pharma, and I'm not so-called anti-vaccine. I'm actually somebody that doesn't think any vaccine should be administered. You know, I'm an abolitionist. I'm a vaccination abolitionist, which makes me very unique in some ways and censored massively. My work has been tremendously censored. Kennedy's a latecomer to the vaccine debate, and during the presentation that he just defended himself and his positions, he came out very powerfully in favor of vaccinations. So that actually disturbs me greatly. Frankly, John, let me take you on a magical mystery tour. And it relates intimately to this question you're raising about what's the news that's going to be forthcoming about vaccinations. If it's consistent with tradition and history, there's no news going to be coming out about vaccination, or if it does, it's going to be diverted, it's going to be belittled, discredited, it's going to basically have no major impact.
In fact, Kennedy's MAHA report is a classic example of this vaccination protection racket. Here you can see another great vaccination genocide cover-up. The report covers everything other than vaccines, causing the reduction of life expectancy in America, despite the highest investments in healthcare per person compared to other nations. It acknowledges a chronic disease crisis in America, especially damaging children, without mention of the contributions of diseases from vaccinations. It shows autism rates skyrocketing despite mentioning any association between vaccine mercury contamination and intoxication of children's brains. It cites a massive increase in cancer rates, especially among vaccinated children, without attributing this to the vaccination injections of foreign DNA causing genetic mutations. The report cites all the toxic chemical classes under suspicion, but leaves out vaccinations that deliver a virtual witch's brew of chemical, genetic, and immunological poisons. And although it cites, quote, too much medicine, end quote, too many drugs given children, it leaves out the elephant under the carpet, vaccines. In other words, consistent with lying that has been the pattern and practice of health officials in bed with Big Pharma, from COVID to AIDS, it completely shields vaccines from scrutiny.
Now, during the last 48 hours, for the first time really in my life, I've been actually engaging social media. I've been very negligent about connecting to social media. So I've been reading what people are saying about my works, particularly my videos on revolutiontelevision.net, leads into this issue of vaccinations and where we're at concerning the censorship and the disinformation and the counterintelligence program and the operation. But even more important, where I'm going to go with this, I'm going to take you on this actual reality check that deals with Jesus's ministry called Christianity Today, deals with the issues that we're having internationally with the Muslim faith and the divisiveness between the Jews who are claimed to have been behind all the genocides and all of the problems in the world, and the Muslims issue that's currently unfolding, and the Christian issues that are currently unfolding. That's where we're going to go with this vaccination question that you're raising. So see if you could follow me on this. So I'm reading the social media sites, and one of the ones that was very beautiful was, Dr. Horowitz, you know, I've been watching you and looking at your 528 material and how it relates to spirituality and Jesus's ministry of saving souls. And, you know, frankly, you don't need to deal with frequencies. You don't need to deal with any amulets or any technologies or devices in order to connect to God and Jesus and have a blessing of the Holy Spirit. And I wrote back to the fellow, I said, you know what, you're absolutely right. on every count, except for the fact that, when you start to think about what Jesus was saying and doing, you realize that it's not about the doctrines and traditions of men. In fact, it was Jesus that said to us, beware of the doctrines and the dogmas of the religious world and the traditions of men, because it leads us astray. It doesn't give us the savings of the soul, which was what Jesus' ministry was all about. It's about saving souls. So I wrote back, I said, what's your soul? Are you not a sinner like all of us? Is there not this kind of discrepancy between the spiritual realm of perfect divine harmony, as Jesus demonstrated and indicated we need to come out of the insanity, hypocrisy, and devil doing and sinfulness of the physical world that, by the way, Satan controls as the fallen angel of music, which is frequency, and light, which is frequency. I said, why don't you think about what your soul is? Look at the spiritual dynamics of your soul and tell me whether or not you can't use the type of technology that God and Jesus and Moses was advising. So the question then becomes, well, what was God advising? What did God tell Moses at the burning bush to do for his leaders? Because the people were not listening. They were not grasping this divine communion potential. And God told Moses to go back and basically develop breastplates on garments that have gold and silver. Gold and silver. Now, Moses wasn't the first one to recognize the importance of gold and silver. Where this is leading, I'm going to bring you to Denver Airport murals in a minute. So gold and silver was recommended by God to Moses to drape ourselves with gold and silver, and that would enable us to divinely commune. Now, that's consistent with what Jesus' message was, because if we're to divinely commune, we need to do exactly what he said. We need to come out of this insanity and hypocrisy, connect directly to the Creator, and have that virtual clear channel broadcast in God's heart, in our hearts, in divine communion, perfectly that way. It's as though you tune into, as I've been saying for years, like with 528, you tune into the clear channel broadcast of divine love. That's the zone of bliss. And in that, there's nothing missing, nothing broken. There's no dis-ease. It's the context in which the advice to us, which is if God is for us, nobody and nothing can stand against us. It takes us out of the physical realm and brings us into the metaphysical, spiritual realm that Jesus was all about demonstrating and modeling. And Moses was instructed to educate his Levitical priesthood in this understanding. So that's where my mind went. And then, this issue of vaccinations comes into play. In 2001, June, 3 months before 9/11, I published a book. It's called Death in the Air: Globalism, Terrorism, and Toxic Warfare. June of 2001, I published Death in the Air. Think about the title. Globalism, terrorism, and toxic warfare. How prophetic. And it was so important because in that, I'm going to take you through the 16-page full color gallery of the Illuminati, of the devil doers, the oligarchies, the World Economic Forum leaders' art. They have art. It demonstrates and depicts exactly what they are all about and what their objectives are, what their missions are, and what their plots and schemes are. So I'm going to take you through that in a minute. But basically, what I did in June of 2001, 3 months before 9/11, I sent 450 copies of that book to libraries across the United States and to legislators across the United States, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. This is what I'm saying. Whoever could come out with whatever they want about vaccinations, and the likelihood is, the pattern in practice is that nothing is going to happen, because you see, vaccinations are the sacred cow of public health. You don't mess with that. That's why Kennedy is saying what he's saying. He knows a lot. He knows a tremendous amount. My heart goes out to him. He has a tremendously difficult job being in the position he's in, because he's dealing with all of these health crises, the food poisoning, the air poisoning, everything that is literally whacking us, we the people. And the vaccinations are at the forefront of that. But, you know, politically, it's incorrect to say anything negative about vaccinations, as you can see from the Senate testimony and hearing. So basically, I sent that out and nothing happened, except about 2 weeks after 9/11, I think it was about 10 days, you had the anthrax mailings fright. And I happened to be an expert in anthrax at the time. So I was seeing through the propaganda. And what ended up happening, I started to publish against the FBI and Robert Mueller, saying this is a huge cover-up. You guys need to get on board with this understanding that Cipro poison, exclusively recommended for anthrax prevention, is deadly, has terrible side effects. And this fright that you've generated to sell Cipro is demonic. Well, my messages didn't get very far, except it did get to the FBI. And about 3 months later, I had 2 FBI agents come to my door, knock on the door, and say, you know what, you're a person of interest and a suspect in the anthrax mailings. How do you like that, John? So they spent, now this is a little diversion, they spent 2 days interrogating me. And after 2 days, after I totally wanted to show them and share with them the truth about this whole pharmaceutical cartel and how it's connected to the globalist devildoers, the World Economic Forum people of that time, I basically got nowhere. And they just really wanted to pin me. They needed to have somebody responsible and basically somebody that caused the anthrax mailings, and they wanted to pin it on me. So I said after 2 days, I said, you know, you guys got your guns right there in your holsters. I said, I'm done. You're not interested in following my leads. And basically what they did, I said to them, you can either shoot me now, kill me, or leave. And so they ended up leaving. But basically that's the background. What I was sharing with them was the full color gallery and the story behind the artwork of the global devildoers, the globalist devildoers that I published in the book, Death in the Air, Globalism, Terrorism, and Toxic Warfare. And it starts with the cover, which shows a Nazi alien. A Nazi alien. Think about how relevant this is to the current themes of population manipulation that's ongoing today. A Nazi alien sticking the Christian symbol of the dove of peace with a Muslim saber. And in the other hand, holding a machine gun, and behind the Nazi machine gun is devastation as we see in Gaza today or in Ukraine today. And to the right of the Nazi soldier holding this Muslim sword, you see the devastation against the children, and particularly the minorities that are devastated with genocide. And hasn't that been the topic in the last 24 hours, with President Trump meeting with the South African president and saying, what are you doing about the genocide against white people? In this particular image, this is an image from Denver Airport's murals. And I was there on day 3 of the opening of Denver Airport. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. First of all, the luggage was not being processed properly, and we, the passengers, were directed through various concourses underground, through tunnels that are no longer accessible to the public. On day 3, I walked through the tunnel underneath Denver Airport where these murals are, and I saw the most astonishing art dedicated to the New World Order in gold mosaic tile. I wish I had my cell phone or a camera at the time, because I would have taken pictures. I didn't capture a picture. I captured the pictures of the murals. So the picture that you see on the cover of Death in the Air, I took. It's a mural in the Denver Airport's main concourse. And so against that backdrop of Nazi, alien, Muslim, anti-Christian sword, you have devastation. And then between that particular mural and the dedication capstone, there's another mural. Now, the dedication capstone caught my attention, so I took a picture of it. It's a Freemasonry dedication. And interestingly enough, it segregates between Black Freemason organization and white Freemason organization. They both got together here to dedicate Denver Airport. The intertwined mural shows a picture of the genocide that we're witnessing.
Against a horrific backdrop of wildfires and flames destroying the environment, you have a tribute to the extinct species, including the American buffalo, the whales, the sea turtles. And in the foreground, you have the humans, represented by a Black African in the left coffin. You have an Indian representing the natives of the planet in the central coffin. And to the right, you have a Judeo-Christian woman holding the cross and a Jewish star to her heart on an American quilt.
You see, steps away from this, in the floor of Denver Airport, there is a mining cart, like you're mining for silver and gold. And that's what it says in the mining cart. You have the elemental designations of AU, AG. AU is the symbol for gold, AG is the symbol for silver. This is a mining cart for mining for silver and gold. And then steps away from that, you have these magnificently artistic murals, colorful murals depicting the genocide against a backdrop of extinct species.
With a mining cart steps away, as though you're mining for depopulation, using AU, AG.
And then you have another mural that shows the dance in the end. The New World Order is established, and there are no more adults. It's all youth, led by a German lederhosen-clad image that is celebrating the death of this image on the cover, the Nazi gas mask alien. So this is the artwork that is associated with the book. I go on further and show that a lot of this artwork deals with the secret societies, deals with the global World Economic Forum directors, and these particular artwork that follows comes from Klaus Gronke, who lived in Berlin as well as northern Idaho, where I was living. And he actually founded the German American Academy with Henry Kissinger. His name is Klaus Gronke, and his artwork is contributed. Edward Kienholz is the artist. The book goes into his artwork, where I was attempting to bring the FBI agents to his house via boat across Lake Pend Oreille, which is the deepest lake west of the Mississippi, and that in that lake is the United States Navy's deep water nuclear submarine, 120-foot long deep water submarine. People don't know about this stuff. I was a resident in the area, and Klaus Gronke's estate was there, and by miracle, I really learned all about it. And I got these photographs of the artwork in the estate that I attempted to get the FBI to look at. Now, let's go to the next step. So follow me here. This issue is about vaccination. The mining cart for genocide is silver and gold. This goes back to the understanding of what God said to Moses and what Jesus was preaching to save souls, to come out of the hypocrisy, to join God in divine communion. So we're looking at the connection between vaccination and the deadly agenda for globalization and genocide, the unspeakable vaccine matters that we can't talk about because it's the sacred cow of public health, which explains also what Kennedy is actually doing right now. Connecting this to what Jesus was preaching, what Moses was advised by God, that you basically have to come out of this insanity in physical reality and join God, commune divinely in this frequency resonant spiritual realm. So that's associated with this issue of vaccination. And here's the connection between it all. The mining cart of the devil doers for depopulation and global genocide involves silver and gold, AUAG. The origin of the use of those two symbols in medicine, health science, AUAG goes directly back to AIDS, the development of HIV/AIDS, and its distribution through hepatitis B vaccines. How did I get there? Well, very easily. Go back into the National Institutes of Health, National Cancer Institute contracts, as I did in the book, Emerging Viruses, AIDS and Ebola. And there you see that the origin of the hepatitis B virus was initially called AUAG. It was supposedly named the Australian antigen. That's AUAG, but it also stands for gold and silver. And it happens that that was what was used. It mutated in the laboratories to create the hepatitis B viruses. Hepatitis A, B, C, all of the hepatitis viruses come out of AUAG, the mining cart for depopulation, silver and gold related. So what you have now is you have Satan and his devil doers flipping God's most treasured information and recommendations to Moses of how to commune divinely with God by draping yourself with silver and gold garments, which happens to be old technology because before you had Moses, you had the Egyptians. And what were the Egyptians doing to preserve their bodies? The rulers were building pyramids with what kind of capstones? Silver and gold laminated capstones on the pyramids that pulled down the energy and sent it down into the chambers and into the sarcophagus to preserve the physical bodies of the rulers, and more importantly, do what Jesus's ministry was all about. The rulers of Egypt believed that you could commune with God divinely in the soul and spirit for eternity. That was salvation to the rulers of ancient Egypt. And this was the technology that used silver and gold. That's why the 528 Therapatches leverages this technology. It basically puts into the body the vibration, frequency, resonance of pure gold, proven now by science, plasmonic science. Plasma is ether. It's spirit, it's energy. It's coming off of gold. That is the proven frequency now, according to science, of pure 24 karat gold, 528 frequency. And silver happens to be a harmonic of gold. It's 417 hertz frequency. So the therapeutic patches utilizes this technology for divine communion because it is the Holy Spirit, we know, that does all the healing. It's what causes us to go to sleep at night feeling dreadful, drained, having the hard work day, and suddenly wake up in the morning refreshed. How did that happen? It happened by the grace of God and the Holy Spirit that comes into us, particularly when we're relaxed and we're not in our heads fearing what we need to do next to survive. This is the energy of divine communion, 528 frequency, the silver and gold. So isn't this interesting? Where now you literally have the demonic entities that are controlling the genocides on the planet, utilizing and flipping this technology for genocide through vaccinations, no less. So that's what the issue is. That's why it's a sacred cow of public health. You can't talk negatively about vaccinations. That's why they have censored me above everybody else. And, a lot of people have been discredited. You had Andrew Wakefield, for example, made the poster boy for the anti-vaccination movement. He was on my board of advisors. I pulled Andrew Wakefield from my board of advisors when I found out he did have a conflicting interest that he did not report with regard to his vaccination that he was developing. So basically, I have been the #1 most censored of all of the authorities in the field of vaccinology. And why is that? Because my work bridges this gap that Jesus was counseling us to come out of and get out of that insanity and hypocrisy and embrace the truth that shall set us free. The truth is that God is right here, right now. Jesus is right here, right now, with the Holy Spirit, willing to help us, protect us, and heal us miraculously. And that's why 528 frequency is the miracle note of the original musical scale. Do, re, mi, miragistorum in Latin, miracles in English. It's the miracle frequency. The second note, re, resonance fibris in Latin. The resonance energy, the resonant energy is 417. This is encrypted in the Bible, in the book of Numbers, chapter 7, verses 12 through 83, lays out a series of repeating verses. Every 6 verses deal with the gold standard, the gold offering to God, which then gives you the frequency 528. Every 6 verses lays out, that's the code, that's the encryption that Moses put into the Bible, because supposedly Moses wrote the book of Numbers. This is in the book of Numbers, chapter 7, verses 12 through 83. And this is where this intelligence and revelation comes from regarding frequencies. So this is what I had in mind when I responded to the social media messenger that said, you don't need any of this stuff. You just have to have Jesus. Well, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. If you're not a sinner, that means if you're not disengaged from the divine communion. And who among us can say that we're not disengaged from divine communion 24/7? So this is the technology that can set us free, and the truth that shall set us free, that Jesus was talking about. He is the way. The way was narrow. The way is narrow. It's like a radio station tuning into a certain divine frequency of pure love, pure love. That is the essence of what this Therapatch is about, the technology of what God recommended to Moses to bring his Levitical priesthood on par with what God had desired. And that's what God not only desires of us, of we the people, the faithful, but we, to survive now, must integrate this to do what? To overcome the damage being caused primarily by vaccination intoxications. You've got to literally transcend this whole physical realm of dis-ease, of frequency resonant dissonance that's inconsistent with divine natural healing and sustainability that gold and silver, the pure essence, reflects. So this is really what has been on my mind in the last, few hours, actually, after visiting with some people on the social media. To bring this understanding forward is a treasure. It's a great honor and it's a great blessing, and it's a great responsibility to bring this intelligence forward. That's why we're recording. That's why we're recording this information, to get this intelligence out. And I appreciate every single one of you that's listening to this or viewing the video as we'll publish it, to share it. Because again, you've heard it. That means you've heard it from a watchman. That means if you don't share it and you know it, and you basically are going to violate, if you don't share it, 42 USC 1986, that basically puts the responsibility, if you know something dreadful is coming down on people, such as the intoxication from vaccinations and the political ploys to hide the sacred cow of public health, as Kennedy is currently doing. You have this intelligence now to save lives, and if you don't use it, you don't share it, then the blood is on your hands, says the Bible. You're complicit in the genocide.